Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I welcome you all those who have joined me in today's session for the discussion on challenges that impair cybersecurity operations and managed security services while performing threat hunting. Before we begin the session, let me take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Muneeb Imran Shaikh, working primarily, I've worked most part of my career in the telecommunications sector and lately in the financial sector with an aggregated experience of 12 plus years. Uh, my specialty mainly lies in cyber threat intelligence, governance, and risk management side. If you want to know more details about me, you can reach me at the LinkedIn at the link which is given below, and you can send me a messages over there if you have any queries or something. I'll be more than happy to answer you. Uh, one more thing before we formally begin, there's a poll that I have set up which contains four questions. If I'm able to recall correctly, I would request you to give your answers, give your feedback. That will be valuable for me. And let me take a moment to explain what I am going to discuss and who is the targeted audience for today's session. The targeted audience is mainly the security leadership or SOC managers, SOC team leads. Uh, Reason being that I'll be discussing the fundamental issues which are faced by the teams when before they embark on the journey on threat hunting or the issues which impair their capability to engage into threat hunting exercises. And I will not be discussing the technical and the operational aspects because that is not the scope. And as we move ahead, you will understand the context of my argument. So let us begin. We'll start with the understanding the threat, the need for threat hunting, what exactly it is. So, if you see that the purpose of security leadership is the main responsibility of a security leadership is to make sure that its security controls are placed, are set up in such a manner that they ensure a healthy and secure hygiene of the entire organizational IT infrastructure, so that the business continues to achieve its mission, its goals, and its objectives. That is the primary role of any security leadership. However, how does security leadership confirm that they are secure enough? Is there any binary answer to that in the form of yes or no? And what are the tools that are there in the hands of security leadership which enable them to give this answer with conviction? So in risk management, does it give you that answer? I'm not really sure. I don't think so. The threat hunting, therefore, is a proactive approach which looks for the anomalous activities that might be occurring in your organizational infrastructure. It allows you and it establishes or it enables the teams to go out there and hunt for the threats that might be looming within your organizational IT infrastructure or the network infrastructure, or which may be buried beneath the surface. This allows you, and the purpose is that you want to understand or reduce the dwell time, basically, where and dwell time is the time taken by an attacker to inflict, to intrude into a network, and the time it takes uh, for the organization to detect that someone has trespassed or intruded into the network and is attempting to wreak havoc in the organizational IT infrastructure. So the purpose is to the threat hunting. What it does is that it allows you or it enables you to reduce your dwell time. In the recent report by FireEye in Feb 2020 for the average dwell time, it has reduced from previous few years. This year, the average dwell time was 56 days, which is approximately 2 months. Previous year, it was, I assume, 79, and I think in 2018 it was in three-digit figure. So though there has been decrease in the dwell time. However, uh, what is important is that even 56 days are good enough for a threat actor to wreak havoc into the organizational infrastructure, depending on what his exact objective is. So, therefore, threat hunting helps you to understand what threats lie beneath the surface. And once you have this piece of information, it puts the security leadership at the forefront to give the answer with conviction that how secure your posture are, what threats are, and how they have to be addressed. And if there are any threat actors trying to, you know, going after their objectives or trying to inflict any sort of damage to your organizational infrastructure. So, if any one of you is interested in knowing more about threat hunting, here is my article that I wrote on Experts Exchange. You can go and you can read it over there. This is just a snapshot that I have mentioned over here. Let me also say that this is quite unfortunate that attaining this proactive approach which is offered by or which one can afford through threat hunting remains a dream for many security operations team. So this is something that many SOC managers want to. This is a capability that many SOC managers want to adopt, but it remains a dream, unfortunately, for many people. Let me, so this is establishing the context. So I want to digress a bit, to establish the context and to put across my argument over here, so that you people understand so when I build my actual argument, you understand the basics. So if you see, you have primarily you have three kinds of security controls. You have administrative controls, you have physical controls, and you have your technical controls. And each controls will have their own functions in the form of and each control has different objectives, and each controls have their different functions in the sense that some are preventative in nature, some are detective, corrective, etc. So all these controls work together in equilibrium to establish or and to maintain a secure posture. And if we look closely, all these security controls get mapped through people, process, and technology, or they are applied through people, process, and technology. Uh, when it comes to security operations or managed security services, which is often, it's a service which is offered by various organizations to perform the security monitoring for their clients. Uh, what we have seen is that there is a long held belief that there's a dearth of human resource and there are not enough good people who can allow the teams to to do you know uh, to strengthen them in performing the threat hunting. Uh, I do not think that's the only part. Even though this is a valid, argument, this is a valid, apprehension, or may I say, a concern that many SOC managers or senior security leaders often profess. However, that's not the entire part of the equation. That is one factor only. If you see, coming back to my point, if you see all these security controls mapped to people, process, and technology, and this is an analogy that I have developed over here, that you see, this is essentially an equilateral triangle, and which represents all three angles, which essentially represents that all three angles are equal, meaning that all three parts are well looked after in terms of energies and in terms of monetary investment. However, what happens is that when we try to emphasize too much on the people, what happens is that what I'm trying to say is that even if you have the best people, now, if you look at this figure, this is an obtuse angle triangle, basically, where you have invested most in people, but relatively lesser in the process and the technology side. What I'm saying, trying to profess over here is that even if you have the best people in your team, even if you have the best people in your team, the decisions that you may have made at the process side or at the technology side can still impair you, in engaging or starting the threat hunting exercises. This is one of my arguments that I want to put across, and I'll try to explain it further as we move ahead. So this is network security monitoring. I have taken this from Chris Sanders' book, Applied Network Security Monitoring. I am an outright admirer of Chris Sanders' writings because he makes things quite easy to understand. I like his way of writing as well. Even a rookie who does not have enough experience can learn and can read, enjoy, and establish his or her own credentials towards network security monitoring. Uh, so this is a network security monitoring cycle that he has identified: collection, detection, and analysis. If you check, this is a cyclical process, basically. And let me take a moment to go to discuss the collection, collection, detection, and analysis. So collection is basically the identification of network entities from where you want to aggregate all the logs, identifying the places where you need to gather the logs and do the security monitoring, again depending on which areas are important for you to monitor and which are risk, and this has to be a risk based approach, basically, which on the basis of which you have to determine that which logs are important for you to collect. The other part is the examination. So once you have collected the logs, then what do you do with those logs? You have to, there has to be, once they are detected, the security teams need to be alerted upon those logs, or some kind of alarms need to be created depending on the needs of these security teams. So that comes under the part of detection, where you are examining the detected events and logs, and you are basically alerting the analyst through either use cases, through different alarms that might be configured at your SIM or other network security monitoring tools. And then comes the third part, which is the analysis, which is the interpretation and the investigation of alerts by human analysts. Now, what I'm trying to say is that we often try to focus on the analysis part when we are, saying, when we are expressing our concern that there's a dearth of enough qualified analysts out there who can take the teams to the position where they can engage in threat hunting exercises. However, what we often miss out is that if we have made mistakes in the first two phases, which is collection and detection, this can, this, even by having the best people for you do the analysis, but if you have made fundamental issues at the collection and at the detection phase, it can seriously impair your capabilities uh, to engage into appropriate network security monitoring, let alone engaging in threat hunting exercises. So these are some of the factors. So therefore, it is important that security operations managers consider all parts of the equation, all factors of the equation at play, which are necessary to equip the teams to perform threat hunting. I'll go by. I'll try and discuss all these reasons one by one. So the first one is having a blind zone and ambiguous understanding of the network. So see, SOC or security operations efficacy is significantly dependent to its horizon and its understanding of the network. And if there is unclear understanding with regards to the organizational infrastructure, its purpose, and the placement of specific entities in the entire network architecture, it makes the security operations or managed security services extremely feeble in identifying anomalies. So uh, this is a hypothetical, figure, or a fictitious figure that I have established, which shows that operations is only able to see 26% of the entire network horizon, while 74% is still in a blind zone. This 26% of the clear network horizon can be further impaired by the reasons I'm going to discuss further. But before I do, let me go and discuss, elaborate my point a little further. So let's say this is a fictitious network diagram that I've established, a very generic high-level diagram. And you can see over here, there's a DMZ zone, there's your internal network. So assuming that this is the network diagram of an organization that engages in e-commerce activities. So you have a web server uh, that is there in the DMZ zone. There's a mail server. Then there are database servers for e-commerce service and its application server. Now the thing is that if the security operations team is only monitoring the application server and the web server, but does not know what's happening with the database server. Again, it has a narrow vision, it doesn't know. And it gets further impaired if it does not know, let's say if for this particular organization, this e-commerce activity is a mission critical service. If this service is ruptured or impaired in any manner, then the business uh, comes to standstill, in no time. So therefore, since it's a mission critical infrastructure, therefore its monitoring is equally more important. So for at least for such IT infrastructure, it is imperative that security monitoring teams have a clear network architecture understanding of its business critical assets, that how many database servers are there, where they are placed, and how many assets are configured into the DMZ. If these level of details are not there, your efficacy is, whatever your horizon is, but your efficacy will be tied down. You won't be able to achieve the performance that you wish to achieve. Again, take the example of a physical security. Let's say if you are part of a command and control center that does the security monitoring for its for any organization, you need to know how many entry and exit points your organization has, and how many entry points, and what are the timings for each entry point. At what time do all the entry points remain open for 24/7, or there are certain entry points that get closed after the business hour? How many exit points are there? Can someone try to ingress through the exit point? Let's say in a parking lot, are there any tire busters installed so that if anyone makes an attempt to get into the parking lot from the exit point, what exactly will happen? So you need to know that how your infrastructure, or how your area that you're trying to monitor is designed, and what are the security controls that are applied at each and every point, so that if the security controls are being abused in any manner, you are in a position to alarm or raise it to the concerned team. Okay, the next part is the slack in administration of security solutions. So, see, security operations is the ears and the eyes of the entire IT infrastructure. But what if these ears and the eyes are impaired due to a carefree approach, or a reckless approach, I would say, in the administration and the health of the security solutions itself? What happens is that in threat hunting, you have to validate your hypothesis through different evidences which are brought forward by different security solutions, including your SIM, your EDR, your identity and access management, or your threat intelligence platform. So when these pieces of evidences are collated, they help to validate or invalidate a hypothesis. However, when these solutions are not administered appropriately, what they do is that they further aggravate your pain, and they further aggravate the problem of not performing network security monitoring appropriately. So these are some of the examples that I've mentioned, which further impair your vision. You see, you already had 26% of the network horizon, but it gets further impaired due to some of the reasons that I've mentioned over here. So let's say dysfunctional SIM collectors causing no collection or aggregation of logs from the relevant sources. Let's say your EDR sensors were found that they were turned off. Your antivirus was not updated on different workstations or on the servers. Similarly, you determine that not all the intelligence which is provided by the intelligence provider is being sent to the threat intelligence platforms because there are no APIs, and put it this way, that from past 30 days, no intelligence has been fed into the threat intelligence platform because there was some configuration that was altered. So these are the areas that further impair your capability to engage into threat hunting exercises. Okay. Next is the mistakes that uh, we often make in the acquisition of security solutions and the security uh, architecture design. See, as I discussed earlier, that each security solution is comes with its own, it acts as a control, and it has a control objective and a function. So each security solution which is brought on board, it should be driven by a risk-based approach. And again, it should have a definite control objectives. So therefore it is important that the implementation of these security solutions is done through a project management lifecycle, which contains initiation, planning, implementation, and closure. So while you're doing the planning for the implementation of a security solution, you have to refer back to the risk that you intended to treat in the first place. And therefore, and one more thing is that all the security solutions that you implement, which I remember, all security solutions are basically certain controls. So whatever controls you are implementing, they must undergo acceptance testing stage to ensure that the controls are treating the risk and delivering the value which was determined during the planning phase. So let us discuss an example. So this is an example where an adversary is able to outpace the security operations team. So let me brief a bit. Here is your cyber kill chain. Here is the organizational infrastructure. Here is your SOC performing the monitoring through the SIM. This is the internet, and the attacker leverages the cloud infrastructure, and the attacker has a packet sniffer. So let us see what happens. See, attacker leverages the cloud infrastructures to send crafted packets by tweaking the bits for certain protocols, and it attempts to probe the network and gather information. This is what happens in the reconnaissance phase. This is the first phase. An attacker has to gather the information. Just as any person who wants to rob a bank, any group that wants to rob a bank, it has to perform its reconnaissance. It has to understand what are the operating hours of the bank, what are the entry and the exit points, which points are the most vulnerable ones, how it can ingress into the premises of the bank. So therefore, the first part is the reconnaissance phase, where the attacker leverages the cloud infrastructure, sends a crafted packet by tweaking the certain bits and probing the network and gathering the information. What it does is the firewall responds back to the probing response. The probing response is sent back to the attacker's infrastructure. The attacker is able to perform a packet analysis of the probing response which was sent over here. Whatever probing response was sent back by the firewall, so the attacker identifies and performs a packet analysis which is received in the probing response. So when you are performing the packet analysis, some of the packet analysis can also, enable you to understand the underlying OS or the TCP/IP, the TCP, packets, not just the TCP packets, but the underlying OS. And by using this piece of information, it can find out, okay, what are the vulnerabilities related to that OS or to that product. And then they can see how those vulnerabilities can be exploited. Are there any vulnerabilities? Are there any exploits available for those vulnerabilities? And then if there are any exploits available for the vulnerabilities, then the next time then when you will see the attacker, it would come in the form of a delivery phase by sending you a malicious payload. First, it sent you some malevolent packets, and then now has gathered the information. Now it will attempt to send you certain emails with a malicious payload. I mean, the delivery mechanism is not restricted to just email, but I'm just giving you an example. However, let's see what happens at the SOC side. So let's say firewall logs are being sent to the SIEM, and at security operations, we monitor that, okay, someone attempted to perform a recon activity, reconnaissance, and gather the information. We consider that, okay, this is a suspicious activity. If the SOC contends with just blocking the email and thinking that the attack has stopped. Since if SOC does not have the packet capturing capability or does not engage into in performing the packet analysis, what it is doing is that SOC does not know how various attackers are tweaking their packets, how they are crafting their packets to perform the reconnaissance activity. So they are missing out on significant piece of information. However, what attacker is doing is that he is leveraging this piece of information through packet analysis and attempting to outpace you. You are thinking that, okay, reconnaissance phase is finished. I have blocked the IPs. That is good enough for an attacker. He's no longer or she is no longer in the reconnaissance phase. It has moved, the attacker has moved ahead into the delivery phase. The next time you'll see an attacker would be through an attempt to deliver certain malicious payload. However, you have contended with just blocking the IPs. So therefore, these are the tools, and which these are the fundamental decisions which block your capability to uh, perform a proper network security monitoring, and these further and therefore, if you're not effectively doing the network security monitoring, your capability to engage into threat hunting is further impaired. Let me take another example. One more thing that I wanted to highlight in this one was that see, this is not just restricted to collection and detection. This has also to do with the analysis part, and this is where a good analyst would be, distinguished from a one who is still learning. Because see, cyber kill chain takes place in cycles. So you have to understand that, okay, whatever you are observing in the SOC, which phase does it relate to? Does it relate to reconnaissance phase? Does it, you obviously you won't see anything related to weaponization, because I mean the attackers are doing this piece of work in their own backyard. They probably, if you are leveraging the threat intelligence and if you have identified certain big actors, certain determined actors, you can just keep an eye on their motivations and what they have been found doing or what they may have been engaged with. So let's move ahead. Next is this, where you have, so let's say there's a server A that tries to communicate with server B, let's say over port 445 for some valid reason, which let's say it has a business justification. It tries to communicate with server B on port 445. All this traffic is being sent to IDS. So firewall sends the same traffic to the IDS to perform to check if there is any anomalous traffic traversing through the network. However, if this IDS only detects and alerts the security analyst over any traffic which it considers to be suspicious, and if the IDS does not demonstrate the actual raw traffic which was considered suspicious, uh, then what will happen is that the SOC teams will only be chasing ghosts and making noise all the time. I mean, without understanding the actual traffic, because the actual traffic is not available to the SOC team. put it this way. So now what happens is that IDS considers it suspicious lateral movement within the network. Now, since the IDS logs are being sent to SIM, so IDS is integrated with SIM. So once the same logs are sent to SIM, SIM triggers, SIM's use cases are triggered and sends an alarm that, okay, someone is attempting to move laterally in your network. And this is one of the reasons. What it does is that it this reminds me of a story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Because if you continue to make noise all the time and it turns out to be a false positive most of the time, what happens is that your credibility is at stake as a team or as a division. Your credibility gets tainted, and no one starts, and no one takes you seriously. So therefore it is imperative. So these are the decisions like these are, are made during the acquisition stage. What kind of product you had acquisition? Did it go through an appropriate acceptance testing procedure? Did you check the features that were available, and did you flag any of the items that you felt were not appropriate? So I was reading this book from Stephen Northcutt back in January on network intrusion detection, third edition. This book was written back in 2002, but however, it's amazing that I still find a lot of things that are written in this book. They are still true because still teams are suffering through this. So this is an extract from his book. I'll try to read it to substantiate my point. He says, when an organization first starts performing intrusion detection, it might be quite happy with the system displaying a GUI interface with a picture, the name of the attack, date, time, and source and destination IPs. The happiness often ends when the organization finds out that it has reported a false positive. At this point, the analyst starts to desire to see the whole enchilada, and it should be available with one mouse click. Drill down is a very powerful approach. Analysts get to work with big picture data, and as soon as they want more detail, they just click. The analyst should not have to leave the interface he's using. That discourages the research. Analysts certainly should not have to enter a separate program to get to the data. That is inexcusable. Drill down is not possible unless the data is collected, and it certainly ought to include the packet headers. No analyst should have to report or detect he can't verify. So that pretty much substantiates my point. So these are the decisions that you are making during your collection phase or during the acquisition of a security solution. And if there has not been, if a project management lifecycle has not been incorporated or an acceptance testing stage has not been conducted, then what will happen is that this will, I mean, this will shatter your dreams. This will shatter your dreams, or probably therefore, I'm saying that our focus, our long-held belief is that teams, often SOC managers or leaders, trip about this, that they do not have appropriate human resource to engage into threat hunting. However, what happens is that even with a with with a reasonable human resource, if you have made fundamental decisions that can impair your capabilities, uh, you know, with the passage of time also, your teams will won't be able to appropriately detect any TTPs of any threat actors or any threats that might be looming within your within your organizational infrastructure. Okay, let's check the other part. The other thing is the lack of documented procedures. So, uh, this forces the security operations teams to rely on their own understanding, their gut feeling or their experiences instead of following the procedures which may have been defined in the policy document or in the procedural documents, which will help them to detect for early detection, containment, mitigation, and remediation of the incident. So this impedes in the overall maturity and the growth of the security operations as the teams move from one incident to the other due to the lack of any appropriate structured or a defined approach. The next one and the last one that I wanted to discuss is the lack of orientation sessions and collaborations. So, see, if the culture of knowledge harvesting is common within the organization, then this culture permeates through security operations as well, and it can negatively affect the capability of a team to engage into threat hunting. See, the article that I referred to initially, I had mentioned over there also that threat hunting is a collaborative exercise and requires members of the team to to work in a collaborative manner and learn through each other's experiences. So therefore, if there's an environment where every player keeps his or her cards closer to his chest and does not want to share the learnings or the details of his investigation, then it can seriously damage your capability to perform any kind of threat hunting. So these are the decisions that are supposed to be taken care of before we embark on the journey to threat hunting. So these issues and these issues basically create various blind zones and create a mound of mess and restrict the SOC or the MSS to become a noise-making department, which just opens the trouble tickets for any anomalous behavior that it might have seen without adopting any analytical approach. So such security operations teams are unfortunately incapable of creating any narrative, any story around possible threats which may be buried beneath the surface, and therefore they do not provide any reasonable assurance as well of the security hygiene of the entire organizational IT infrastructure. So that's about it for the session. I hope you people found it beneficial. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at my LinkedIn profile. I request you to subscribe and hit the bell icon as well for this YouTube channel so that we can and you can also reach out to us to let us know if there are any specific topics you would like us to cover. It was a pleasure to engage with all of you during the session. Thank you so much to all of you who have attended the session and have provided their feedback with in the polls as well. And I look forward to seeing you all sometime in any other session. Thank you so much. Then. Bye.